All right, let's open up a new case file today, and this one's a real head-scratcher. We're diving into the mystery of the Roman goddess Diana. How, exactly, did a beloved protector of nature become the terrifying leader of a spectral army? We're going to follow the evidence and see if we can crack this thing.
So, get this. On the one hand, you've got Diana, the Roman protector. She's the goddess of the hunt, guardian of the woods, the moon, the whole deal. But then medieval folklore gives us this other version, Diana, the Phantom Queen, a horrifying figure leading a ghostly procession of the dead. So what gives? That's the central mystery we're going to unravel today. How did one become the other?
Okay, so our first clue takes us right into the Middle Ages. We've got to figure out how Diana's original story was picked up, twisted around, and totally transformed by European folklore. First, let's establish a baseline. In ancient Rome, Diana was this powerful, almost serene figure. She was the master of wild animals, the protector of forests and those sacred oak groves, and she represented the cycle of the moon. A protector, pure and simple. Now, let's fast forward a few hundred years. All of a sudden, in medieval stories, she's this terrifying leader of a chaotic, spooky chase in the middle of the night. And her crew? It's not just animals anymore. Now she's rolling with the souls of the dead and forest spirits. The peaceful huntress is gone, replaced by a supernatural queen of the night.
So how in the world does that happen? Well, the next piece of evidence was hiding in plain sight the whole time, right inside her original, very complex identity. We need to look at the fact that she didn't just rule the woods. Her domain stretched all the way into the underworld. And here it is, the key piece of evidence, the whole concept of a triple goddess. This is absolutely crucial to our case. It means Diana was never just one thing. She actually held power in three totally different forms, and she ruled over three very different realms.
This table just lays it all out, doesn't it? As Luna, she ruled the heavens, the moon. As Diana, she commanded the earth and the hunt. But, and this is the big one, through her connection to the goddess Hecate, she also had power over the underworld and the dead. That link to the dead, that's our smoking gun, right there.
Because she ruled all three of these realms, Diana was basically a master of what we call liminal zones, those blurry boundaries between worlds. She was a kind of frame god, able to influence our world while living on the edges of it. And that authority, the ability to just walk the line between the living and the dead, made her the absolute perfect candidate to lead an army of lost souls.
So, with her connection to the underworld locked in, our investigation now turns to the main event itself, that terrifying midnight parade known as the Wild Hunt.
And believe me, this was not a quiet little stroll. Accounts from the time describe it as a chaotic, roaring chase that would just thunder across the night sky, especially in winter or during a full moon. Can you just imagine hearing that sound overhead? This terrifying mix of demons, ghosts, and spectral animals with Diana leading the charge? No thank you.
And what if you were unlucky enough to actually see it? Well, the consequences were not good. It was considered a terrible omen. People who saw the hunt were said to be cursed, often driven completely insane, or they just dropped dead. This was definitely not something you wanted to run into on a dark night.
You see, the really important thing to get here is that the Wild Hunt wasn't just some scary ghost story. It was a symbol for the raw, uncontrollable power of nature, its wild, dangerous, untamed side. This was the darker part of Diana's power, a long, long way from her role as a gentle protector of women and children.
This brings us to our next major clue in the case, a historical process called syncretism. It's how Diana's identity was intentionally blended with other powerful goddesses over a long, long time.
Syncretism is basically what happens when different cultures smash into each other. Their gods and goddesses start to borrow traits, share powers, and eventually they can merge into a totally new, combined figure. And Diana, she is a perfect example of this in action.
This little timeline shows exactly how her identity morphed. First, she was linked up with the Greek huntress, Artemis, pretty standard, but then she starts to pick up features from Hecate, who is all about witchcraft in the underworld. And finally, she gets this new name, Trivia, which cemented a whole new side of her power.
And that name, Trivia, is so important. The Roman poet Horace even called her that. It literally means goddess of the three ways, or crossroads. And in ancient beliefs, crossroads were these incredibly powerful liminal spaces where the spirit world could literally bleed into our own.
As trivia, Diana was the undisputed queen of these supernatural hotspots.
Which leads us to the final file in our investigation, the human side of the story. How are the actual people who continue to follow Diana seen in this new, much darker world?
Historians, like Carlo Ginzburg, have found all these folk beliefs about a so-called Society of Diana. Now, these weren't really organized cults. It was more about people who believed that in their spirit or in their dreams, they would ride along with the goddess on her nightly procession.
But here's where the whole story gets twisted. As times changed, the way people saw these followers, it soured. Big time. Were they just worshiping an ancient nature goddess? Or were they practitioners of dark magic, of sorcery? And that question, it became a very dangerous accusation. And that's the bottom line. The myth of Diana and the Wild Hunt became a powerful weapon. It was used to demonize older, traditional pagan beliefs. The idea of the powerful, independent, sacred feminine that Diana stood for was reframed as something dangerous, something that had to be feared and stamped out.
So, let's close this case file. After looking at all the evidence, what have we learned about this incredible, evolving myth and the goddess at the heart of it all?
Well, the evidence is pretty clear. A respected Roman goddess was transformed into a phantom queen. Her built-in triple nature already gave her that critical link to the underworld. The Wild Hunt myth gave a face to the untamed, dangerous side of nature. Her identity was then fused with goddesses of witchcraft, which turned her followers into suspected sorcerers and gave people an excuse to demonize the old ways. Case closed.
But through it all, Diana's power is still there. She's this incredibly complex figure, a ruler of both the sunny forest and the ghostly hunt. She's a potent, unforgettable symbol of the wild, untamed night.
So we've closed the case file on Diana's transformation, but it really leaves you with a fascinating question, doesn't it? If a goddess that people revered can be turned into a phantom queen over the centuries, which of the stories we're all telling today will become the haunting myths of tomorrow?